Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And if you want to succeed in any kind of business today, you have to be a social media aficionado. And that's why I'm excited that today Daniel Alfon is with us. He is the author of Build a LinkedIn Profile for Business Success, which we should be doing right now. So grab your pen. Daniel joined LinkedIn in early 2004, and he publishes articles, interviews, and exclusive content about advanced LinkedIn strategies to clients and subscribers to clients and people who subscribe to his website, which is danielalfon.com. And we're going to put all the links to that into the show notes, but his last name is spelled ALFON.com. So, Daniel, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Christina. I'm glad to be part of the Get Your Fill.
You're helping us to get our fill, right? Daniel, did you just sort of like immediately, I think 2004 is kind of early to have adopted, like, did you jump onto LinkedIn pretty early, and how did you kind of discover that whole world?
Yes, it would be a lie to say that I knew what LinkedIn would turn to later on. I was just interested in trying this. And initially, I think the person who sent me the invitation was someone I trusted.
Yeah.
And then I decided to dive into it. The aha moment came a year and a half later when I took my first my first job sales, and I need to carry a quota. And then it took me, the initial first 2 months weren't that good. And at one point, LinkedIn just showed me the name of a distributor I could call. And because so much of our sales cycle back then was trying to identify the right person within the organization, it cut by half my sales cycle. And from that moment, I wanted to specialize. I heard the podcast you released with Jerome Myers when he described his aha moment of the flight from Salt Lake City, Utah, and the football down below. So that was the equivalent of my aha moment.
What were you selling? What were you doing before you discovered LinkedIn?
I was with a company that manufactures store fixtures and was looking for North American distributors. And what that LinkedIn basically helped me reach my quota and double the sales. And when I moved on, I simply decided social was becoming too much of a thing to be owned by one person. And I'm glad I picked LinkedIn. It's a conservative platform. I don't have to show people whether I eat, lasagna or something else. Yeah, yeah. So it's sort of, you can call it a social media, but it's more professional and more business community. And I like that initially, and I still like it today.
Yeah. And then when did you sort of let go of your actual, quote unquote, work life, work for other people's life, and kind of say, all right, you know what? I can do this thing for real, and I don't have to, answer someone.
You could say I was an accidental entrepreneur even before that. It's 96, January 96. And when I look at it, there are many advantages to being a consultant or coach or freelancer. Back then, I didn't realize half of them, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it, taking that first step and saying, okay, I had this. I mean, you were in sales, so you weren't 100% perhaps getting a steady paycheck like you always knew. But still, when someone else is paying you, there is a little bit more sort of, I don't know, do you feel that way, a little more security at first when you make that leap? It's like,
you're absolutely right. It's the uncertainty is even more daunting, and I didn't know that so much of my time would be dedicated to collecting. Like I never dreamt it would be a significant part of the time I had to spend. But you learn along the way, and you improve along the way. And I'm lucky to work with clients I really enjoy working with, and that's a big plus.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you help people now to kind of, how does your business work? Like if I said, geez, Daniel, I have this, I'm an unknown I'm an unknown star in my own mind, and I want everyone else to be aware of it. I'm a legend in
Wow.
my own mind.
Okay.
I want to share that with everyone.
So that sounds like I would first ask you in what sphere, in what skies you'd like to shine. Like what is your, who represents your ideal prospect, if you'd like. And even before deciding that LinkedIn is a platform you should use, a simple question would be to see whether your prospects are really on LinkedIn or not.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then you should, if they're on Instagram, then you need to pick Instagram. If they are, then just remember that whenever someone runs a search for Christine McCarron or Daniel Alfon or anyone else, our LinkedIn profile, Christine, will be one of the very top results, even if we haven't logged into LinkedIn for a year.
Yeah.
So we need to manage it. We need to manage it whether we're later in real estate or whether we were a digital health executive. And simply thinking of our LinkedIn profile as a CV is a mistake if you're not looking for a job. So start think about it as a website that needs to convert your ideal reader. If my ideal reader would be, say, a family relocating to Boston, Massachusetts, and thinking about buying a home or renting a home, then what sort of information is likely to make that person understand that I could be the right solution for them? And in what order would they like to see the information that I can supply? And the best content that can work on LinkedIn is usually educational content.
Yeah.
So instead of just showing, the latest listing you have, simply try to, because you've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of families in the same, with the same challenges or the same questions, you can show them that you know what their decisions are based on, and try to show them the way to the next step. Like, have you ever visited Boston? What is special? What is important for you as a family? Some families would say that education for their teenage children would be the most important, where others would focus on something else.
Right.
And if you can become a trusted advisor to that educational aspect, then you're the only vendor at the end of the day, because they trust you, they understand that you know your business, and a lot of our sales are referral based. If we're in the service industry, anyone can Google us and find many other people, but our reputation is perhaps the single most important asset that we have, and LinkedIn is one key way to enhance or strengthen our relationship and our branding.
So that's, you bring up, that was going to be like one of my questions, is how people are using LinkedIn. But what you just said, like you do a search for someone's name and their LinkedIn profile pops up, because I don't really think about speaking to a person on my LinkedIn page. I feel like I'm speaking to colleagues, because that's who a lot of my connections are. But you're right, I should be speaking to people who might find me organically. I'm thinking, oh, they're going to magically find my website, but it's just an interesting, different way of looking at it. And you've already helped me, and I hope Daniel's already helped you too, if you're out there listening, because it's just a different. I thought people would be intentionally looking on LinkedIn for somebody. Now, when people do that, like, tell me some of the different ways that people use LinkedIn.
Okay, the easiest way to start with is that when you decide to use LinkedIn, try to do what's right and not what's popular. Because
that's
many people,
for your whole life, you should do that.
That's right. You're right. If you look at the way people use LinkedIn, in many cases, they have misconceptions about the platform. They are too focused on sharing. And before you share anything, you should remember that most of your connections will not see what you share, and that most people are not interested in the content you share if you overshare. Yeah. So for some of our listeners, it could be sharing something once a month. It could take them 10 minutes to find the best educational piece that they've read and simply share that and move on to something else. Because if you share, 5 times a day or 5 times a week, your connections become blind to the content because they already know, okay, he's always posting about XYZ. So by the 5th time, we understand and we no longer engage with that content.
Right.
And we don't even consume that content. Instead of thinking of just pitching or selling, we need to think top of the funnel. Like, what educational information is going to help our reader? Who's your ideal reader? And we bring up a very important distinction between our network and our audience.
Yeah.
For some people, it would be the same thing. Like some people would connect with their prospects all the time, but when they move to a certain industry or location, then they're stuck with, legacy connections that are not really in the same field.
Yeah.
And for some people, their audience is not necessarily their connections. I could sell to X and be connected to people I worked with, colleagues, like you said, or people I studied with, or people from my local community.
Mm-hmm.
And one way to, if I realize that my connections are not my ideal audience, then instead of relying on my connections when I share, it would be easier to find a LinkedIn group where that audience is engaged and there share my tips about X or about Y. It would be a lot more interesting and more relevant than trying to share to death the same pieces of content.
It's interesting because what you've just advised, right? 1 or 2 really good strategic pieces of content a month is so different from what people who, like, on Instagram, they say, oh, if you haven't posted, in the last 2 hours, you might as well not bother, right? So that's really interesting to me. It's quite a different philosophy, right? I mean, these other people are like, oh, 4 or 5 times a day, you gotta be out there, you gotta be doing it. Like, that makes me tired. I can't go there, right? I can't be on. If I check Facebook once a day, it's a big day, I can't.
I understand, and that's some of the beauty of it. The only piece of advice I share are about LinkedIn, and if it also works on the other way around. If we try to simulate our Facebook habits or Twitter habits or Instagram habits on LinkedIn, it usually wouldn't work.
Right.
So maybe we can go back to the way we use LinkedIn in a strategic way. Sometimes, if let's take again the example of real estate, because it's important for people. As a realtor, you may focus on the individual buyer, the individual seller, someone who's interested in a condo or something else. But on LinkedIn, what you could do is something different. Try to identify the 10% that are B2B within your business. Office space around Boston could be very lucrative for you. What you should do on LinkedIn is helping companies understand that what you bring to the table in terms of real estate for the company helps them relocate to Greater Boston, or if you can secure that kind of deals, then even if it's just 5% of your attention or your resources, you can actually have more revenues and certainly better margins than competing for another 5 condos or another 2 individual buyers, simply because when someone buys a house, LinkedIn is frankly not the first place they would look for. Whereas anything business related could be more interesting. You could.
Yeah. So targeting, so that's the question, like that word I was just going to use, targeting. I'm writing my content with this person in mind, right? A person who maybe is a relocation specialist for a large company or something like that. But am I actually intentionally making connections with those sort of people, or am I just sort of putting out content that they would find relevant, so when they magically discover me, that they are going to be happy?
Yeah, that's a question I wish more people would ask. Because I could, throw my 2 cents at you, but your decision is likely to be better than mine. In the long term, would you feel more comfortable connecting with those people and then trying to nurture the relationship with them, or do you see this as separate axes? Like one axis is people I know well, and the second is sharing content. And to what extent do you think referrals are important in your business? Some listeners may say that advertising works best for them or something else. And if you are building a referral-based business, and if trust is important in your field, then you could decide that you only connect with people you know well, because each time someone visits your LinkedIn profile, Christine, and says that we share a mutual connection, then they could reach out to that person and ask them about you. And if that person goes like, Christine, who? We're in trouble.
Right.
And we are responsible for what people see on our LinkedIn profile. And we are also responsible for the names of the mutual connections, because one of us has made the decision either to accept that person's invitation or to send them an invite. And no one can see who sent the invitation to. So there's no way to say, no, maybe we both of us share two mutual connections. One would be they would praise you and they would answer questions about you, and the second doesn't know you. I can't guess who you really know. And most people will simply ask someone they trust, and maybe that's the wrong person.
Right.
And that person doesn't need to badmouth it. They just say, I really don't know.
Yeah.
And if you want to use LinkedIn strategically in terms of referrals, then connecting with people you know well is not popular, but it could be the right thing for you.
Yeah, because I couldn't even tell you who half the people are that are on my LinkedIn profile. It's just like, okay, I know them, I know someone they know. So is it a good idea to have them on there? I mean, the party line, the popular opinion is that the more followers you have, the better. But if, like you say, if someone's going to ask this person for a referral and they're like, I have no idea who you're talking about. Like, we're friends on LinkedIn. Well, that doesn't mean we're friends. Right.
Could you trace actual revenues to the people you don't know on LinkedIn? Could you say that you had 3 deals out of those gazillion? So,
but I'm shaking my head no if you're listening and not watching the video. But to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever got any kind of referral from any kind of social media. So clearly, I have a little help. I need a little help in that area.
Let's take another approach. Maybe when you examine the source of referrals you have, perhaps we can imagine a different scenario. Maybe lawyers could be a good source of referrals to you, not as individuals, but whenever they're involved either in inheritance or divorce, those actions would also impact people's decisions to move or to sell or to buy.
Yeah.
So you could decide that what you do on LinkedIn is simply identify 2 attorneys or 3 lawyers that are relevant in your industry, and you build your relationships with them and then connect with them on LinkedIn. So the connection doesn't have to be the first step. You could build a relationship with them, see if they're interested at all in working with you in one way or another, provide value to them. And then at one point, when you become the go-to person, you can also connect with them on LinkedIn. And those 2 attorneys could bring, again, 10% of your business for the 3 years to come, simply because, most people buy a house, it's a major event.
Right.
Maybe the next time they would go and ask for services is in a decade.
Right.
Whereas attorneys could meet every month potential customers. So it doesn't have to be a direct sale. It could be a referral-based strategy, if you'd like. So
Daniel, I love this, but I do feel like I'm being a little selfish because I'm just talking about my stuff. So tell me, let's choose another profession that can really benefit from their LinkedIn profile. Let's just talk about that person.
Okay.
How about a podcast? Oh no, that's
your podcast is a booming industry, so we could try to discuss podcasting as LinkedIn as a way to enhance your podcast, if you'd like. So this is way more general than Christine. You happen to be one of the best podcasters, but it's about the industry. It's not about you. So most LinkedIn members would try again to simply share the latest episode they released. That's not a bad thing, but imagine what happens when you see someone sharing the same sort of content week after week, then you basically know what to expect. You could try to use LinkedIn in a different way. You could use LinkedIn as a good way to find influencers or guests or technology partners or anyone that would make your podcast available to new audiences. It could be you could also find podcasters where you could be a guest on, and you could share your experience and maybe invite that podcast host to your show, and they would get the feel and they would describe things to your audience. So actually finding other podcasters on LinkedIn can be done within minutes.
Yep.
Instead of chasing another listener, another it doesn't make sense, because it requires a lot of time to, instead of just dropping the episode, to try and find a quote. It could be done if you, instead of just sending the people away to the episode, you would make a visual with a quote that the guest has said that you think is striking and interesting. Then that sort of content would be more easily consumed and better. It would resonate more with people. So even though they know it's about your podcast or about the episode, the visuals are always different, and the quote is never the same. So it does make us more interested in seeing what have you come up with now. I know the general idea is an episode, but you always make it different and interesting for us as content consumers, maybe.
Well, plus the advantage of that is, when you just have 5 minutes to just catch up on things. You're not going to click a link and listen to a podcast, but you could consume that quote and think, gee, that's interesting. I really want to listen to more of that episode at a later date, right? I mean, so this to you is like old hat, right? To me, I'm like light bulb all over the place. Because it's so perfect. It's just awesome. Okay, so forget me now. You were talking about when you first started doing this, you were in sales. So how did you use that as a salesperson?
Simply when I looked at distributors in North America, I no longer had to place 5 to 10 phone calls in order to identify the right John Doe within the organization. And I could simply concentrate on speaking with them first, and I could get more outgoing calls and more deals in every quarter. And then at one point, I think I realized that I wanted to do this in a more serious way and to look under the hood. And one thing that has not changed is that LinkedIn is very powerful and very counterintuitive. It's in every workshop I run, I ask people, okay, so if I wanted to do this, where should I click? And everyone points in one direction. And by the end of the workshop, they know the answer is never there, because it's never like the logic is unique and it takes a lot of time to understand how the system works. But under the hood, it's a powerful system. It's close to 1 billion members, wealthier members, probably than any other general platform, if you'd like. And every second, Christine, 2 people sign up. It's amazing. So try to make it count and try to simply look at your profile, ask someone you're not connected with to show your profile, and then say, if you were my ideal client, what would you do now? How do you understand this? And looking at your profile, there are a number of things we could go over. You use a banner, and 99% of LinkedIn members don't use a banner. So the banner is striking, visually appealing, and you can change it every couple of months if you'd like. You also, I'd like to quote you the URL of your LinkedIn profile, because it says Boston Re Guru. And that's a very powerful handle. And it takes 30 seconds to change, but it's part of your uniqueness. Instead of just having the name, you have something that is more appealing to your ideal reader, or your ideal prospect. And also the book is featured on your LinkedIn profile. So visually, it makes people understand that you've published a book, and see what you're up to, and it gives you more thought leadership and more authority. And even if people don't buy the book, they understand that you know what you're talking about.
Nice. Awesome. So when someone comes to you, so I have two questions. One is, it sounds like everything is very specific. When you like the suggestions you're giving to me are good for my specific situation, but when each time you work with someone, is it a very, not unique obviously, but are there very special approaches for different industries in that?
It's a very good question. I think some of the questions may still be the same, but each answer differs. And even if I asked you, 2 years ago or 6 months down the road, because your own business will evolve and pivot, maybe some of your focus, 2 years ago wasn't exactly the same as it is today, which makes it more interesting from our perspective. I do believe in organic, custom, and nothing I described costs. You don't have to pay LinkedIn for a premium account, but you do have to be thoughtful about it. Like, what is your objective? And my clients gain revenues and not LinkedIn metrics. And the metrics I think are more important are your business metrics. So let's speak in a most general sense, okay? Whether you're in realtor or health or anything else. Most of our listeners have some real life metrics. If they're in business, it could be sales, it could be orders, it could be inquiries, it could be downloads, it could be subscriptions, it could be anything of that sort. And when you think about LinkedIn, then many people are fall in love with LinkedIn metrics. Wow, I have 2,000 views. I have 20 gazillion connections. Whether the question should be, okay, have we managed to translate those LinkedIn metrics into business metrics? And if you have, then I'm all ears, do it. But if it's not very clear to you, then forget about the LinkedIn metrics. Think about LinkedIn as a black box. If it has to feed your business metrics, and if before LinkedIn you had X revenues or X orders or X inquiries, and thanks to LinkedIn you have 20% more or 3% more or 500,000 more, then you know the relationship between what you've done and what you get. But if there is no connection, or you can't show that connection, then forget about LinkedIn. It's here to serve Christine and Daniel, and it's not for us to serve LinkedIn.
Thank goodness. So tell me some of the topics of your workshops. What kind of things do you cover in the workshops?
It's often about lead generation, top of the funnel, and working with SMB owners, consultants whose clients are on LinkedIn. Very roughly, it's often starts with some profile optimization, and then some connection optimization, content optimization, and lead generation. Usually roughly in that order, because building a decent profile should be the first step we take, and then analyzing our connection strategy. Whether do we even have a connection strategy? And most people think, okay, I've never thought about it. Who do I want to connect with?
Right.
And from my perspective, if they decide after the workshop to go to have 30,000 connections, or to have a quality network with people they know well, either would work. Simply, you have to think about it instead of just reacting, because most LinkedIn members simply react to invitations. So you would get an invitation, and maybe in May you would accept, but 2 years ago you wouldn't accept, or 2 years down the road you would do something different. So think about it in the very long term. In 3 years' time, 5 years' time, Christine, would you like to be best connected or most connected? If you had to pick one.
Best connected.
So now it's time to analyze what you've done and maybe play in that sandbox for a month. Can you only connect with people you know well for the next couple of weeks? And then maybe you'll analyze your network and you'll come up in this, you see that you have maybe 50 people or 300 people you don't really know.
Yeah.
You could reach out to some of those people, the most interesting ones, and say that we've connected last year and now I see that you're doing ABC, and suggest something or ask something that would help them in a very simple way. If they get to reply and you make a real life connection or a real life relationship out of that previously virtual connection, then you're gold. And if that person doesn't reply in a way that suits you, then you can remove them and keep it. We all have a real life network. Yeah. People we've worked with, and some of those people are on LinkedIn. For some of our listeners, it could be 200 people. For others, it could be 2,000. But this doesn't really matter. If you want to stick to quality, connect with those people. And the greatest advantage of connecting with people you know well or having a quality network is referrals, because each time you run a search and you see someone interesting, then you could leave LinkedIn, reach out to them with mutual connection and ask him, do you know that person? And can you help me speak with them? Can you introduce me to them? Yeah. And that could lead into significant business, significant relationships, and better business metrics than anything else.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, all these light bulbs are coming on here. It's so much more powerful. Like, I feel like I don't even want to go on LinkedIn because every time I do, I get all these messages when people want to sell me stuff. I just feel like, no, I don't want to buy your junk, get off my network, So, wow. Okay. So when someone comes to you for the first time, you kind of sit down and say, all right, what are you doing and how can LinkedIn even serve as part of this, which seems like that would be pretty much everybody. And if so, how we can intentionally make these worthwhile connections and serve. What you're talking, I love that you're saying in each case, how can you help this person? How are you going to serve this person? Because why else would they want to connect with you? Not like, hi, I'm really, like, no, please, gonna get, you want to hear the groan from across the room, right?
Great. I think what I've learned is that initially a discussion with my discussion with prospect is not about LinkedIn at all. It's about their business. So I would ask you shouldn't, there's no preparation, those kinds need to prepare, because I simply ask them about the way they work today and who their ideal customer looks, how do they look in the next 6 months to 12 months. And only at a later stage, we go to LinkedIn and we try to analyze if there's a gap. Some of my clients are aware of the gap, and some of my clients discover the gap with me. But it doesn't matter. The moment you know what your North Star looks like and where you want to be headed in real life, then we need to look into LinkedIn and to see that it serves or fills or get your feel for your business and for your real life metrics, and it provides them with more clarity. And in often less work, because some of them would, focus on sharing things 5 times a week because someone told them they needed to do that, and they're actually relieved, because if we share something once a month, then the quality would be a lot better, and that would resonate with our audience better, and you would get even better quality leads than trying to share things 5 times a day. Most people don't need those five shares a day, and they have. We don't need to work for LinkedIn. We simply need LinkedIn to work for us.
Interesting. What do you think about the LinkedIn Live, or like videos and stuff? I've seen that some people. Do I understand you need to get qualified or whatever to do live things on LinkedIn? What are your thoughts about it?
I think LinkedIn Live could be part of your content strategy if you're looking at video. In very general terms, I think video is very successful on LinkedIn. and live video in general is growing. So what you could do is try to have one of your future guests as a LinkedIn Live interview. It would require slightly different preparation for both of you, but it could be a nice change and a nice way for you to play with that platform and decide whether it was worth your while or not. And if that person has a large following on LinkedIn, then it would be a lot easier for them to bring people to attend the LinkedIn Live event. Plus, the LinkedIn Live event will still be there. So it's not, yes, real time is important, but if you share that thing, 10 a.m. Boston time, and people only go and check it the next day or that evening, they will still be able to, it's not a story, or it's not something that will disappear. The live element is on top of consuming that content down the road.
Interesting. And do you have to, can anybody do a LinkedIn Live?
I was in a number of occasions. I had the opportunity to be a guest on LinkedIn Lives. It's scary because right now I know that if the UPS person knocked on our doors, then I'll apologize and we can cut it out. But LinkedIn Lives is without a safety net.
Yeah.
And the adrenaline is high, obviously, but there's also risk involved. Something might happen, and there's no way you can bounce and explain things. So you need to be. It's interesting to play with if you prepared and if everything works smoothly from your perspective.
So let me ask you this. I feel like I'm being really selfish here, but I know that other people are still benefiting from the generality of what we're talking about. But
Okay.
I'm changing. I'm not changing the format of this podcast, but I am creating a new podcast with some of the same guests that's a daily format. And the last day of the week on Friday, the plan is to allow people to ask questions of the guests who they've been listening to all week. Do you think that LinkedIn Live would be a good venue for that conversation?
I think it could. And the idea of listening to the podcast in hand and then having the questions on Friday is excellent for a number of reasons, because we know when Friday is, and we can build up to that Friday. And the guest is also likely to share on LinkedIn the link to get your feel and invite their following and their connections to listen and to ask questions. And I think it could be, you would have at least some of the questions you would already have by Friday, so it's not totally improvised. I think it could be nice for you to try it out in one of those Fridays, and please let me know why. We have 8 hours difference, but I'll try to attend live if I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that I've been trying to figure out exactly the best way to do this. And I was thinking, Zoom, but then you've got the whole giving people access and
Right.
find people coming or whatever. I guess that happens. So, all right, cool. That's a neat idea. So what is there one thing, Daniel, that kind of surprised you when you started really digging into LinkedIn, like a discovery you made or something that you just thought, oh man, this is so whatever, different than what you originally anticipated?
We would need 5 different episodes just for things I discovered every year, but
Wow.
maybe I'll pick one. The fact that we're seeing our own LinkedIn profile in a different way than most people would see it. And every year or so, I would advise our listeners here to simply ask someone to bring up their LinkedIn app and to show them how their own LinkedIn profile looks to other people, preferably someone they're not connected with, and you would be amazed. In some cases, I imagine 99% of our audience here think they have a LinkedIn profile photo. Guess what? In some cases, no one sees that photo. Because there's a setting that enables or disables the visibility of that photo. And at one point you discover that 99% of people never see a photo. And it's not because you, Christine, decided you wanted to hide your photo. Because there's an obscure LinkedIn setting that maybe by mistake you stumbled upon, and that person just helps you understand that whenever there is a gap, what the world sees is more important than what we see.
Absolutely.
And
so that I had absolutely no idea about that. That's a great tool, a great tidbit to let people know, because I just assumed that everybody saw exactly what I saw when I looked at my profile. Wow. Okay. We need at least 5 more episodes here. So we're already getting to the point where I have to wrap up, and I can't believe we have so much more to talk about. So Daniel, just to sort of give people a starting point, if they are just like, oh, wow, I now see some of the power of LinkedIn and certainly some of the ways that you can help them, but some of the ways that LinkedIn can also help them. What would be, first they should call you. So why don't you first tell them how they should get in touch with you? And then a few tips of things that they can do today just to kind of make their profile a little more powerful.
With pleasure. They could go to my website, that's DanielAlfon.com. There are free articles there. They could get into a one-on-one call with me. There's a giveaway, a freebie about improving their LinkedIn profile headline, a cheat sheet that focuses on that key real estate, if you like, and helps us build it in a more customer-friendly way. And if they reach out and say, I listened to your episode with Christina McCarron on Get Your Feel, and I have a question, then I'll do my best to answer them. And I'm a fan. I know you have another fan called Daniel, the one that stepped into the office and was not happy with the result that the company you had joined back then had, because you were a new employee, and you build the short video about three ways to help people understand customer service. So I'm another fan, and my name is Daniel, and I'd like to encourage everyone to listen to Get Your Feel and simply go and practice it in any way they'd like.
Great, thank you so much. That was really shameless plug. I'll send you the check. You're supposed to be plugging yourself, not me. Or not the podcast, I should say. So the links to Daniel's website are going to be in the show notes, DanielAlfon.com. And anything that I should have asked you, Daniel, anything that you really want to share that I just kind of didn't grasp or didn't touch upon?
We didn't discuss LinkedIn audio events. They're newer than Video Live, and the jury may still be out there, but I would still try to play with it and maybe host not a usual podcast or not a usual event, because your audience usually converts better on your website and not on LinkedIn. So simply think about LinkedIn as a way to drive people to bostonreguru.com, but you playing with the LinkedIn features every couple of months, maybe you'll find something that works for you, like an audio event you'd like to do once a quarter with maybe a couple of guests, or a LinkedIn Live with people asking questions on Friday. And if they complement bring more traffic to your website and enable you to have fun and enjoy it while you're playing with it, I think it's worthwhile exploring.
Excellent, thank you. I didn't ask about them because I never heard of LinkedIn audio, so no, I just learned something else. Wow, Daniel, this is awesome. I know. See, you will be a great guest to have on the live thing, because I know people are going to be furiously writing in questions and popping in questions of well, what about this? What about this? We have to do a 2-hour live, 2-hour LinkedIn live.
It'll be an honor
when I get that together. So this is not, I'm way ahead on podcast, so this isn't going to air till June, but wouldn't that be fun to do that?
Of course, it'll be amazing, and it'll be another way for people to ask questions that they care about, and we can you can bring up their questions, and they will benefit from on one hand, the anonymity. There's no stupid question about LinkedIn.
Right.
And many people are afraid of asking, and maybe that way they would that would enable them to ask questions and get straight answers. I don't sugarcoat my answers, and they will be able to do whatever they like with. But they'll get some definite recommendations, do's and don'ts.
Excellent, excellent. Dave, thank you so much for being with us today. I have just gobbled up all of your information. I can't wait to go out there. I mean, really, you just made me look at the whole LinkedIn thing a completely different way, and I very much appreciate that.
Wow, that's very powerful, and I appreciate it. I got my fill too. Thank you, Christine.
Well, thanks, Daniel, and thank you, listener, for listening. I know that Daniel just like blew your mind with all this information, so you have got to share this episode with somebody, and share Daniel's website with somebody, Daniel, DanielAlfon.com, because I'm going to go as soon as we end this call. I'm going to go and download all your free resources and soak up as much as I can, and definitely be back in touch with you. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Christine.
And listeners, have a great week. We'll see you next week.